Good deal, good deal. We are back. Welcome back to another episode of Elevated Scaling. Of course, I'm your co-host, Kaleb Rosenberg, joined by my other co-host, Owen Granger. Unfortunately, our other partner, Daniel, is actually traveling kind of the world right now. I'm over in the DR having a good time. So hopefully, obviously safe travels for him. So we're just gonna take this just the two of us today. But Owen kind of brought up a good point throughout the week. So I'll just kind of let him take it from here.
Welcome back to Elevated Scaling. If you've been here before, if not, we talk about what scaling your business looks like from the inside. And today, instead of operations or systems, processes, we wanted to talk about what it looks like for an actual business owner and the changes that they have to make as a person if they want to scale their business successfully.
Yeah.
It's something that we've done before, and things change in your mindset and in your actions and how you deal with certain things as you take on a new role inside your business, even though your job title doesn't change.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Yeah. So really, a lot of this is about things that you almost kind of have to accept as a business owner, things that you have to let go in terms of whether it's your ego or your control over certain things. But I think the big thing where you have to start is it's a complete mindset shift, right? From the point of being in the trenches all day long, every single day, where you're thinking about the job next week or the job the week after that, or maybe even a month or two down the line, to if you're actually thinking about scaling your business and you have the drive to scale your business, whether it's doubling your revenue or 10 times in your revenue, the shift doesn't really change because you're going from someone who maybe you're an owner operator where, yeah, you're still doing all the business owner stuff, but you're still in the trenches every day, right? And it's
Yeah.
like in terms of a lot of things, whether it's forecasting what your business looks like, the things that you're focusing on day to day instead of pouring concrete, or for us writing ad copy, we're now having to focus on a lot of more intangible things like dealing with people, whether that's clients, new partnerships, new team members that you bring on. And
Yeah.
so that's a huge change in your mindset from, I got to get this concrete poured, and how's the best way to do it? Or what's the best ad copy to write? To how do I forecast my business growth in a tangible way over the next 1 to 5 years? You may be
Yeah.
having those thoughts now as what you're doing, but what that looks like on a day-to-day basis shifts completely once you're like making the decision, a very, you know, dedicated decision to wanting to scale your business.
Yeah. That's a great point. And something I do want to touch on too is, like you kind of mentioned previously, like we've been there before. Obviously, when you get into business, which is the case for a lot of business owners, when you initially get into business, you are starting your business either out of a passion or you previously worked at an organization and you thought to yourself, I could do this better myself, or I could do this more efficiently, or I could
Mhm.
make more money, whatever the case might be. It's typically drawn out of either a passion or kind of like a want in that aspect. And so when you get into business, you're not, for the most part, for people who are starting their very first business, because a lot of the times this is somebody's first business, you're not thinking about it from a business owner mindset because you've not been a business owner before. So you don't know what it takes to actually scale an organization, actually lead an organization, lead people. And that's a very different beast, kind of how Owens touched on. It's completely different when you're talking about performing the duties or the job at hand, regardless of what industry, niche, category, or service that you're providing. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Once you make that change into being business owner, because a lot of the times you're an owner operator. And I know a lot of people don't like to, you know, shed light on this or think about it like this. But when you first start your business, you are just working for yourself. You are an employee of yourself. You are not like, yes, on paper, you're a business owner, but until you employ people and you delegate and you put systems and processes in place,
Mhm.
you're not really a business owner. You're just working for yourself. And a lot of times, your business, when you first start, is just another 9 to 5, but in reality, it's another 6 to midnight or
Mhm.
6 to 10, right?
Yeah.
So, um, I think that is also key for people to kind of realize and make a distinction with is that when you first get into business, like there's a particular mindset again that you have to have. Again, you got to get the job done. You have to grow your business. You have to get more jobs through on the books, more revenue through the
Mhm.
door. Obviously, that makes sense. We've all been there, but at the same time, there's going to be a point in time if you want to scale to the next level because there's going to be a cap. There's only so many hours in the day. You can only be one place at one time, right? If you want more
Exactly.
jobs running at the same time, you want more revenue from this kind of ceiling that you're inevitably going to hit, then
Mhm.
it's going to require people. And now with people, as Owen's kind of mentioned, and he'll probably touch on that too, like there's a ton of different things when it comes to people externally that are coming into your organization that are not you. They do not know you and how you would think and
Mhm.
how you would internalize something, right? How you would process something. So, um, yeah, it's kind of what's your thoughts on like the people aspect because I know that that's a complete different beast.
Well, for me, a lot of it stems from looking at small businesses, right? Whether it's your like local grocery store in town that's not a chain, or pick any small business you drive past on a daily basis. Who do you see in there 9 times out of 10? It's the owner, right?
Mm,
As you're saying, the owner is an employee. A big part of that, and I know people will say, it's hard for small businesses to grow for X, Y, and Z. The X, Y, and Z normally are money, time, and want, right? Like some people don't want to move to a bigger place and have more responsibility. Totally fine. Some people don't, quote unquote, don't have the money where it's like you do, but you're not willing to invest it into what is actually, going to get you there. And like the people aspect, most small business owners, even though they might not agree with this themselves, have a huge ego in terms of to the work produced on a daily basis. They
mhm.
need to have their hands in everything, or else they feel like the business is going to fail, which it's at the end of the day, it's more close to the opposite, where it's like
Mhm.
if you are constantly involving yourself in every single part of the process and taking on more of that responsibility from start to end, guess what? One, you might not be great at every aspect of your business. That's something that people also don't like to admit. They think they're great at everything. And sure, some people are. The top 0.5% are. Yeah, absolutely. If you're one of them, congratulations, but you're not listening to this podcast.
Literally.
I'm just gonna be honest with you. And so you have to detach your ego from the work that you're producing. Because if you are involving yourself all the time, other people aren't learning those skills or using the skills they already have better than what you're doing. So
Yeah.
you're really limiting yourself by putting all of this pressure on you throughout the process to get it done when in actuality you could hire someone that does the job better. And yes, granted, I know hiring sucks. Super expensive. Some of the candidates aren't great, but going through the process and actually being diligent about who you hire, not just how they look on paper, but their feel within the team. How how do they add to the energy of the team? And what does your team need now? Maybe you have the rah-rah guy, right? That's what I
Mhm.
always was. But it's like you don't need 10 of them. Like
Yeah.
people fit in with their personalities, and you have to be able to think about and detach from the process instead of being like, oh, I don't want to hire this person. When in the back of your mind, the only reason you're not hiring them is because they do something better than you.
Mhm.
And it's like, would you rather have that person working for you or your competitor down the street? To me,
Exactly.
it's a very simple answer. And there's this whole thing about self limiting belief, which is extremely true. But people limit themselves in ways of staying, well, on top of saying, well, I can't do this. That's a self-limiting belief. But on the
Yep.
flip side, saying I can do all of this, you are limiting the revenue that you are going to make every single year because you're not putting the proper people in the proper spots. And that's something that we've always talked about too, where it's like, and that's just getting people through the door into a new position. That's not
Mhm.
talking about the long-term management of personalities, people, relationships within the team. And so there's so much, and it almost seems cliche to talk about these culture things and like all of that arena of business, because it's became a buzzword, whether it's in politics with like the DEI stuff, or
Yep.
where I came from in the corporate space, where they push this company culture that's a total crock of shit, because
Yeah.
everyone sees how we operate on a daily basis,
Yeah.
and that's not reflective of our company culture. You just have that on there because your lawyer says you have to.
Hmm.
And so if you're actually thinking about how people fit in, the impact they can have not only on your bottom line, but also on the other people around you, if you can't even get yourself to start thinking about that, which is like, that's not even the starting line. That's tying your shoes before the race.
Literally.
So it's like, if you can't get yourself there, you're in for a world of hurt in terms of
Yeah.
trying to grow your business. Because guess what? If you want, and now everybody wants more revenue. I
Hmm.
get it. I've heard it on calls. I want more revenue myself. No one's turning it down. That's not what I'm talking about. If you're actually thinking about adding more revenue and what goes into that, the people aspect plays a huge role, because they will make or break you down the line.
100%.
Period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The people that you bring in and your ability to maintain your relationships with those people, but also like manage personalities in a workspace. Like,
Ooh.
if you can't do that, good luck, brother. You're in trouble.
I'd say that's the number one thing, honestly,
Yeah.
is the people. Because to your point, it's going to make or break you at the end of the
Hmm.
day. And if you can't do that, I mean, again, and we're not trying to make it sound like it's the easiest thing in the world by any
It's
means.
not.
Again,
It's not at all.
everyone's you're going to go through the growing pains, and that's the first thing that we're going to tell you. Obviously, you guys know that we're a no BS type of podcast. Like we're not going
Mhm.
to, pitch you the rainbow at the end of the tunnel, right?
Yeah.
And just say, hey, it's all going to be great. It's all going to be fantastic. Just scale your
Not.
business. It's
It's going
nothing
to
close
suck.
to that.
It's gonna suck at the start for a while. And guess what? It sucks for everybody. Like, it's
Literally.
not just you.
Yeah, no, we all go through it. And I think that's a big thing too that kind of segues into the mindset aspect of you got into business, which was a risk. So it confuses me or baffles me when
Mhm.
someone says that they want to grow and scale. And now all of a sudden you're scared to do the things that are required to scale because it's too risky. Yet
Yep.
you quit your job or you left your job or you retired or whatever, and you started this new adventure that you've not, yeah, you might have experience on the industry side, but again, you have not had experience running a business. So I would argue that you've already taken the same level of risk, if not less, because at least now when you go to scale your business and you bring people on, you know the operations, you know how things are supposed to go for the most part. You know kind of your general idea of how you like to get things done, right? Or what works, what has been
Mhm.
working for you, because you've probably gotten to quarter million, half a million, three-quarters of $1 million a year, if you're lucky, I should say. But let's just say you've gotten a $500,000 a year, right? Somehow
Mhm.
on your own, regardless of industry or niche, providing the services or products that you do. It's like you kind of know what works. So it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to bring somebody into that mix. So, but I also don't understand why you're concerned or I guess afraid to make this leap, and you're afraid to change. That's again back to what Owen said about the ego part. Like you cannot be afraid to change. That's one of the biggest things. I won't say that irritates me, but that I noticed that kind of like is a very big eye opener to me where we get on these calls with folks, these sales calls, and you hear someone who's just been doing business a certain way for so long
Mhm.
that they refuse any idea. Like they are asking you, what do I do? How can I grow my business? You give them the ways that they can grow their business. And they're like, but I don't want to do that. It's like, well,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Like you're the one who wants to scale. So it's like make up your mind. Like, if you want to truly scale, if you want more revenue through the door, you have to have a fundamental understanding that there is going to be things that change. It has to, because clearly what you're doing right now isn't getting you to where you want to be. So you're
Yeah.
going to have to change something. You're going to have to add something. That's like my biggest point there. You've probably
Oh,
seen that
yeah.
countless times.
It's the same people that want to look like Ronnie Coleman without working out for 25 years and taking steroids.
Yeah.
It like and a lot of that comes from a security blanket comfortability area where it's like, yeah, you might be pulling six figures a year, and you're super happy. Can take the family on vacations. You got the nice truck. Maybe you have a boat or a couple other toys, and you're happy. You're like, this is why I got into business. But the people that are the most successful have the strongest held opinions, but are willing to completely do a 180 when presented with new information.
Hmm.
It's the same for the Wall Street traders who are managing $1 billion in capital, all the way down to John that owns the local grocery store and wants to, start to become a chain. It's the exact same thing. Of course, you're going to have strongly held opinions about how your business should run.
Yeah.
Guess what? Those don't matter. So
Yeah.
it's like and kind of like what you were saying, you know the ins and outs of your business of how you run it right now. Just because it makes money doesn't mean it's efficient, doesn't mean it's the best way to do it.
It's a great
And
point.
so doing the things that got you to this point isn't what's going to get you to where you want to go, unless, which very few people do, start perfectly on day one, which is a negligible amount of people.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's I don't know, it's very funny, the conversation of, I would love to add 200K in revenue, but I don't want to spend 5 grand up front. Or I would love to, double my book in 12 months, but I'm not going to install these systems that are proven to do that. Like, and that, again, a lot of that comes down to ego, where
Yeah.
it's like, you're the king in your own head. Congratulations. That's awesome. Everybody is. Everybody thinks they're the king. But that's a lot of the time just not the truth. I don't care how successful you've gotten as a small business. Money is not the most limiting factor in terms of small businesses either failing or staying stagnant.
Yeah.
A large amount of the time, it comes down to the mindset and the ego of the person who owns the business.
Oh,
Like
without a
that's just
doubt.
what it is.
Yeah. Without an absolute doubt. And I think too, the biggest thing is obviously having a clear understanding of what you want at the same time. I
Totally.
think that so many people, and this is a big thing with the younger generation too, is that you get these buzzwords like you mentioned, you get these kind of figures where someone's like, I want to have a seven-figure business, or I want to have,
Yeah, they're just
even
chasing
multi
an
seven.
arbitrary number. They're not thinking about the where they want to go and why they want to go there. They are
Oh
chasing a
yeah.
number, and then they get to the number and they're like, "Well, this isn't what I wanted."
Yeah, because again, it's just the revenue is just a number at the end of the day. Typically, I saw this floating around online not too long ago that like once you pass like 250,000 in personal income, like your lifestyle typically minus material possessions that you can afford, obviously, your lifestyle doesn't really change that drastically once you get past 250. And again, to what Owen was saying, like you have to understand what do you truly want, and not only why do you want it, but what does that look like? Again, for the folks who got into business where you want to take your family on vacation and you want to have that time freedom. You want to have that balance, small teams, small crews. We know a ton of those guys. Like they just want, to very slowly grow. If I could add a couple percent extra, 10, 20% extra per year and just in my revenue growth, fantastic. Small crew, small team, kind of everything in house, like very tight and very lean in that aspect, right? And they have
Yeah.
that freedom, whether it's 9 to 5 or they just have that flexibility to, again, go on multiple vacations and do these things
Mhm.
for their family, things of that nature. That's perfectly fine. There is nothing wrong with that. The problem is when you cross over to wanting this lofty goal that you've put into your mind and you're not understanding what it's going to take to get to that point. Because a lot of times, what I've seen too is even in business partnerships in the past, where we might have the same mutual goal in the end, right? Or the same yearly goal, or whatever the case might be, same revenue goal. But what I've come to find is that there is typically a point in time where you didn't understand, or maybe you had somewhat of an understanding of what it was going to take to get to that point,
Mhm.
and now we're at a crossroads because you don't want to do what it's going to take. And I knew from the get go that this is what it was going to take. I was signing up for this. And I'm not
Mhm.
trying to blame business owners of like not having that idea. But again, you have to have somewhat of an understanding and understand what you're signing up for. Again, in the beginning, you understand that most people understand when you start a business, or at least they find out very quickly that you're not going to really have a whole lot of balance, if any balance, right? Some
No.
people are able to get to that point, but when you want to scale to a franchise level, or a level that of revenue that just takes, in the concrete aspect, multiple crews, maybe even multiple offices, like, you
Mhm.
have to understand that there is a level of sacrifice that is inevitably going to come with that, and you have to understand that's what you're signing up for, because you're going to get to that point, like Owen saying, you're going to get to, if you're trying to get to, if you're at $500,000 and you're trying to get to 2.5, right, or $4 or $5 million a year, and you're not understanding that there's going to be a level of sacrifice, there's going to be things that are going to have to change, you're going to have to drop your ego at the
Mhm.
door, like, you're in for a rude awakening, and you're going to be extremely upset because you didn't understand what you were signing up for. And I think that's a big discrepancy amongst small business owners in particular.
Yeah. Oh, and you made a great point. Even if your goal isn't to turn into some conglomerate, massive national company, if you think adding, let's go with that 10 to 20% number a year is feasible without making these adjustments, you're just wrong. You want to know why? Because you're going to burn out doing that much work. Burnout
Mhm.
is another one of those buzzwords or whatever, but it's like, it's a real thing. You can't pour concrete 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for years and hope everything's going to go out or, turn out great with your business. Yeah, that means you got a lot of jobs, you got a lot of money coming through the door, and you're trying to stay lean, trying to keep your profit margins above, that 10 to 15%, right? But, but it's not feasible. You can't do it because guess what? Work and like how well you produce your work will suffer greatly over time. Because right now, if you're handling all of those, like perfect pours or whatever the case may be in your niche, you will burn out and your performance will suffer. So
Oh
even if
yeah.
it's a, gradual increase of revenue, there also has to be a subsequent gradual increase of the things you're implementing in your business and yourself
Yeah.
that help remove you as you grow. And that's the one thing. And like the other big thing is wanting to grow but wanting everything to stay the same. That it's it'd be perfect if you could, right? It would be awesome if you could add $2 million in revenue without having to build your team or without investing into like automated systems. It'd be great. It's not possible. It,
Yeah.
it like it just look at anything else in life. As as things grow, things change. That's
Mhm.
just a fact. So if you think that you can operate how you're operating today at 4 million, 5 million, whatever the, crazy increase is from where you're at, you got to sit back and think and be like, do you even want it to be like that? Why would you
Yeah.
want it to stay the same? Because now you're kind of defeating the point of why you got into business in the first place. Because going back to what we said like 20 minutes ago, you're just another employee. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Your name is on the LLC filing. That's awesome, dude. But if you're busting your back day in, day out, like that's not what sustainable growth is. Like that's
Yeah.
like growth to the point where you're going to have all these jobs and no ability to fill them. And guess what?
Yeah.
Reputation tarnished. People will start leaving because it's a high stress environment. And
Yeah.
so from the get-go, you have to understand that there's going to be some uncomfortable changes that you have to make. And kind of, going into that, when we talk about like the mindset shift, the big thing is instead of being the owner operator, you now have to think and act like a business operator, someone that is thinking about all of the stuff that we talk about week in, week out. Because now, guess what? You've already put the people in place to do the work because you've gotten to the point where you've realized, okay, I need like 3 or 4 work crews. Someone has to be a leader on that. Or, whether it's with us and we're starting to hire people out for like marketing pods, right? Where it's like, all right, now I'm going to need 3 or 4 pods, for X amount of clients. And you have to trust and, put everything else on the back end. It all comes back to people and setting them up to succeed. But you don't have to trust that they're going to get the work done because you don't have the time or the mental bandwidth to think about and execute on how you're going to grow and focus on client fulfillment. It's
Oh
a
yeah.
it's a slippery slope when you're doing that because there gets to be a time where there's not enough hours in the day. It really does. And that's something that we felt firsthand. We just hired 3 new people to the team. And before that, there was things that we weren't doing simply because we didn't have the time. Like we weren't going to sit down and spend an hour to 2 hours editing videos, building out, like all this crazy content. And it's like that because at that point in time, that's not a needle mover for us to getting any more clients,
Not at
which,
all.
of course, when you're very small, that's all you care about is getting
Yeah.
clients through the door. Now, when you shift to the business operator mindset, you're thinking about, okay, not only how do I get new clients, but how do I keep the people on that I already have?
Hmm.
And two, how am I going to go about capturing 10 to 20% of market share? We're not talking about revenue increases anymore. Now we're talking about capturing good chunks of the market. Those are much different conversations, plans, frameworks than just getting the next job on the books.
Yeah.
And
How you become that dominant player.
exactly. And if you look at any leader in your niche that you're like, this would be awesome if I was them. Just sit back and think about what that owner does on a daily basis versus what you're doing.
Mm,
Are they writing ad copy? Probably not. Maybe if they love it, maybe. Are they the ones pouring concrete? No. Are
definitely
they the
not.
ones moving dirt? No. And now, granted, I'm not saying you can't get to a successful place, when you're doing that. You totally can. You can, be making, of course, this is all niche dependent, but let's say for some of our home service guys, you can make $1 million a year and run a lean crew.
Yeah.
But, and this is a big but, there's always a bigger player. Always. What are the bigger players doing and how do their days look versus you? I'm going to guess they're in a lot more meetings.
Hmm.
They're focusing on these forecasts. Whereas you're just mixing the concrete, getting ready to pour. And it's like you're going to get beat if you want to grow and you're in that spot and you're not doing anything to change it.
Well, they're able to. I mean, that other business owner who's at a more, I guess, a higher level has delegated and things of that nature. They're able to put in more bids because they have more hands on deck, and that's kind of what I've noticed too. Like this almost small amount of micromanaging, which you don't like
Mm,
doing, and your employees don't like doing
hate it.
either.
They
Which
hate it.
you know what I
And
mean? It's
they
back to
and
the
they
ego
hate
thing.
you for it.
Oh, 100%. It's annoying because you're telling them, whether you're telling them directly or indirectly, it doesn't really matter. You're telling them, I don't trust you enough to get this done the right way. you don't have enough skills, you don't have enough experience, I don't just trust you at all. Like that's such a degrading thing to portray to your employees. Again, whether you're saying it directly or not, that's how it's being received, is that they're feeling like they are untrustworthy, they don't have the experience, they can't do the job. So now whenever something because inevitably something's going to happen, a job's going to come up, you're on another job,
Mhm.
or god forbid you get sick, right, and you're out of the business. What is your business going to shut down for 2-3 months? I mean, everybody just went through COVID not that long ago,
Yeah.
and that was taking some people out for, I mean, call it even 2 weeks, because I had a rough 2 weeks when I went through it the second time. Are you telling me that now all of a sudden your business has to shut down for 2 weeks? What happens to all the projects that are ongoing? But
Yep.
even if your business doesn't shut down, you have not put in the right infrastructure for your people, not just as systems and processes and training. We're talking about on a mindset level. You have not prepared them to go
On
out
a
and do
buy-in
something on their
level.
right. And you're not preparing them to now do something on their own. So now, not only are they presented with the situation to go out and do something on their own, they also now are nervous about going to do that on their own. They probably don't trust them. They, even though they might have 10 years of experience, you put them in the mind space to not even trust their own instincts, their own experience. So now they're second guessing themselves. And it just leaves Pandora's box open to make more mistakes, because you have not allowed them to make it mistakes previously, or put the right infrastructure in
Mhm.
place, or the right mindset to be installed into your team members in order for them to feel confident in, yeah, don't worry, boss, we got it. Or, don't worry, take care of your health. We'll take care of everything. Like the
Yeah.
jobs will keep going on. That alone is going to be such a crutch in your growth when everything is dependent upon you
Probably
being,
the biggest crutch, honestly.
oh my gosh, because God forbid you break a leg, right? It
Yeah.
could doesn't have to be sick. If you're not, and we kind of touched on this on a previous episode, where if you're not perfectly healthy and able body, that your business cannot operate. And that is not a sustainable, not just a scalable, that's not sustainable for anybody, because at some given point, you're going to get either tired, like Owen mentioned, you're going to get burnt out, or you're going to get sick, or you're going to get, let's say, God forbid, you get hurt or whatever, fill in the blank. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Again, you have not allowed your employees to make those previous mistakes. We're now in a time where mistakes really can't be made, because again, you might be sick for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever the case might
Yeah.
be. You can't even go to the job site to go double check or to go fix something with a client. So now it's, you've just put yourself and your team members in this place where, look, now we really can't afford to make mistakes, even though I've never put you in a position to make mistakes before or
Mhm.
trust yourself. And I've made you second guess yourself and all these different things. It just, it's not an area of business that you can operate for a long period of time on, for a sustainable amount of time, or even just like when it comes to scalability. Because again, not just when it comes to that mindset of your employees trusting themselves and you having trust in them, but now you also, when you move to that business owner kind of position in your business, when you bring on more team members, you have to be able to get people to buy in. That's one thing that I have noticed countless time and time again through, I mean, Owen's noticed it in the corporate world too, but even on the home services side, some of the most successful, wildly successful companies that I've had a kind of an inside peek at, that are doing 10 plus million, near 20 million, even a little bit above $20 million a year, what they do a fantastic job of is getting people to buy in at all levels in the business, whether it's the sales reps, it's the customer service folks, it's the labor folks, it's
Mhm.
anyone throughout the organization. It doesn't matter, if it's Mary from HR, or if it's John on, the dump truck, or if it, fill in the blank. Everybody is fully bought in, not only to the vision, but what you guys stand for as well. Again, like Owen mentioned, not these kind of bullshit values or core
Mhm.
values, or culture. What are we all about? Like, what do you truly stand for? What truly makes you unique? And having everybody bought into that vision. Again, we're not saying like this is gospel, right? We're just telling you from our experience of what we've noticed. Take it with a grain of salt, if you will. But this is what we've seen countless time and time again through major corporations and major players in these markets, through different industries, that when it comes to building and scaling, these are the things that are proven to work. And that's what I see a lot of small business owners doing, is trying to reinvent the wheel. Why do that? You're
You
just making
don't.
yourself more stressed out, and you're just going to waste a bunch of time and a bunch of money and a bunch of resources Like, why try to reinvent the playbook? It's been here for decades upon decades. Do what works. And this is what we're just telling you. Hey, this is what we've
Mhm.
noticed. That's really what this podcast is also like. When market changes or advertising methods change, like we're here to just kind of relay the message. Hey, this is what we're seeing. This is what's happening with our clients. This is what's happening in the
Yeah.
market. So that's what I would mention. You got to get people to buy
Okay.
in. And if you can't do that, I mean, again, you're not really a business owner because that's part of being a leader. You're now forced to be a leader when it comes to managing team members, but then also getting them to buy in. Like if people aren't bought in, they're not going to give that same level of care. And that's what I see a lot too with business owners is,
Dude.
well, if I bring on people, they won't care. It's because you're not making them care. They don't have something to
Yeah.
care about. If you don't give somebody a reason to care about your business, why would they care? Doesn't make any
Bro,
sense.
perfect example. Back to my old job. I'm not going to mention the company name, but we lost $497 million in
Mm,
2021. Half a billy, baby. And guess what? Nobody gave a shit. You want to know why? Going back to the horrible corporate values. We brought in a leader that was not from our niche. It was a healthcare niche. It was a hospital system. We brought somebody in from outside of that who, guess what, didn't really care about patients that much. Cared way
yeah.
more about the bottom line. And guess what the reaction was on the finance call, on the yearly earnings call, when he was in his multi-million dollar mansion in California, sitting in a room that was bigger than some of my coworkers' houses,
Hmm.
telling us about how it's okay that we lost all this money. It wasn't a good reaction. So now that's obviously the huge, like the wide end of what like the pendulum looks like in terms of this
Yeah.
stuff, right? $500 million loss, global pandemic, and horrible leadership on top of it.
Yeah.
But going back to the buy-in or even like the micromanaging thing, if you have people that you actually need to micromanage, I'm not talking about not giving them the opportunity to prove themselves. I'm
Yeah.
talking about you gave them that opportunity and you still need to micromanage them, fire them.
You got the wrong person.
Fire. You have the wrong person for the role. Or if someone comes into your or is trying to come into your company, right? Like let's say that you are in some sort of interview setting and it's like, "Oh my goodness, this person on paper is perfect, but I can tell their personality doesn't mesh with our company." Don't hire them. You would rather have someone completely bought in to where your vehicle is going instead of someone who's like, it's whatever. This is a cool job, but like, this isn't like me. Like, I don't want that. It's
Yeah.
like the same thing. Like, if someone's super talented in a sport, but they're not bought in with the team's never going to be successful.
Yeah.
That guy might do great. He might have, personal accolades, whatever. But if you're not bought into and like a lot of where we've kind of realized this, not only in business, but sports, like we've like Caleb and I played baseball together. Like I played baseball at the collegiate level. I've
Mhm.
seen what buy-in is, and I've also seen what buy-in is not. And guess what? People that aren't bought in, even if it's a small percentage of your overall team, maybe if you have 25 people, it's only 2 or 3. You will look back down the road if you don't make a change that those 2 or 3 people impacted the performance of your business. Not saying they're doing it on purpose, but just how everything flows and meshes. There will be a direct negative impact on how much money you make from bringing people like this in. It's not all about skills and talent. Yes, of course, you want to find someone better than you to fill X role and have the buy in. That's why hiring is so tough.
Yeah.
That's why you need to drop your ego. And instead of sitting in an interview and looking at it like a competition,
Mhm.
figure out what, you know, like where they fit in. I watched this show Billions, right? It's
Mm.
about it's about like this hedge fund manager and he brings in this, new up and coming star in like the hedge fund space. They eventually part ways and then they have like a fight, not like a physical fight, but like a business fight. He pulls them back into the business And he said, and he says this, and it fits perfectly. You're a worthy adversary, but I want you on my side, right?
Mm,
Like when you find these people, pay them the best you can, give them the best culture that they're bought into, because do you want them on the other side? That's the
mhm.
question that you have to ask yourself. That's why dropping this ego is a big thing. And like it's a big thing for guys our age, Caleb, because everybody wants to be the, 100K a month entrepreneur that they can, post on social media and, shit on people that, are still living in their hometown or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
Everybody
got a 9
wants,
to 5, bullshit
it's,
like that, yeah.
it's all about status. The people that I know that are our age, that are the most successful, are bringing, like, for example, these guys I know that started a leads database. They brought in a CEO, either CEO or COO, who's in his 50s. They
Mhm.
didn't they didn't step into that role. You want to know why? Because they were agency owners before and knew that they needed someone with a different set of skills. Very low ego, only thinking about what are the top positive like impacts we can make. That's it.
Yeah. I think that's a big shift too. Not I wouldn't even say maturity in the aspect of like personal maturity. I think that's when it comes because you have personal maturity and you have business maturity. And I think having business maturity is understanding, to your point, not only that somebody does this better, but you can clearly see that your business will be better off with this person in your organization. And you
Mhm.
truly believe that. And you see that the way to scale how you want, let's say you're at, 1.2 and you want to get to 3.5, and you can see clear as day bringing in this individual, these three individuals is how exactly I'm going to get there because they are some of the best or they have these great skills or great qualities that I see. And obviously, probably in one of our near future episodes, we'll probably go into like a full episode, kind of breaking down some of the best things that we've kind of seen when it comes to hiring, how to
Mhm.
hire people,
Oh,
not the right
totally.
people, just the right people, but the right people for the right roles. Because I can't even tell
That's
you how many
something
times
you
I've hired
say
somebody who
all
was
the time. You
great.
are you are one of the only people that I hear talking about right person, right spot, and how important it is in a business. And even I wasn't thinking about it when we were thinking about hiring, but then you were constantly talking about it, and it makes complete sense.
Yeah, we had a recent example of that too. Like how Owen mentioned, we just brought on three people. We had a job posting up for one role. And again, we'll go into a further episode later down the line. But this is also why we're bringing this up now, and kind of why I wanted to really touch on this is because how Owen's talking about dropping your ego at the door and also being able to be flexible and see clear as day that there's people that you truly want in your organization. And I want to make this very clear. We'll definitely go over this in our kind of like hiring HR type of episode. But like, we're not paying top of the market. Like, I want to make that very clear. Like, we're getting people to truly understand this is where we are headed. This is what this vision for the company, not just and we're not talking about just revenue. You have to give people this this goal for themselves. What does their evolution in your side of your company look like? Is there a path to grow without your organization? Is there an opportunity for them to take a more leadership role? And that's a recent example that we just had with these three folks. We had originally hired for one position. We created two positions for two other folks that had initially interviewed for that one role because we were able to identify, hey, you're better suited in this aspect of our business. And we want you so bad, even though one could argue that do we really need to hire three people at once? Probably not, right? But one thing I've always learned is not just from personal experience, but from people who are far beyond successful than I am, is hire before that you are actually ready to hire. So before you
Oh
actually
yeah.
need something, hire before. And that's why we brought on the three folks, is because again, we saw the value that they provided. Not only did they buy into what we had going on and they were fully involved, but at the same token, they they just displayed this value that was pretty much undeniable. Like, I need you because I need this aspect of my business right now, and I cannot let you go, or I cannot let somebody else pick you up. And again, we're not paying top of the market. Yeah, you got to pay competitive, like Owen said. Don't pay dog water at the end of the day,
Correct.
right? But at the same time, there's all these other aspects that Owens touched on throughout this episode that you have to get people bought in at the ground level for a vision. And that comes with you setting a vision for the company in itself. Again, you have this vision in your head of what thought as far as what you wanted for revenue or whatever the case might be. That's fantastic. But if you cannot clearly and concisely demonstrate that to your employees or your team members. I don't even like the word employees. Owen and Daniel can really tell you guys, have, I wouldn't say never, but I very rarely call people employees. And that's back to the whole dropping your ego at the door. The reason why that sounds so, minuscule and so stupid, but I want to explain this to folks that when you switch that mindset where I don't have employees, I have team members, you're putting yourself at the ground level with everybody else, whether it's the person who's just responding to follow-up messages from past leads, or it's the person handling our marketing. Like, we are all equal. There is nobody who is greater value than any particular person, and that includes myself, Owen, or Daniel. We matter no more than any of our team members, because again, everybody is in every department, every role in that department. Everybody plays such a critical role in
Mm.
your team, and you have to understand that and actually put value on it. You can't just bullshit your way through this. That's another thing that I want to mention. Again, we'll touch on this in our kind of hiring episode. It's like, you got to actually believe, like, you got to believe this shit internally. Like, you can't just, people will pick up on that. If you are bullshitting your way through and you're just spewing, Owen told you a great example of the corporate world. He knew that this was just a bunch of horse. So if you don't truly believe in what you're pitching these people, they are going to very much so. They might not communicate that to you, but they are
But they're
going
going to
to
see through it.
realize.
They're going to
Yeah,
see through it. And
right through you.
that's such a key thing in terms of, don't just be like, turn your mission, vision, and values for your company into the things that you and your other, top line employees care about.
Mhm.
That's and that kind of goes back to, I don't know, the idea of knowing you're not the best at everything, right? It's like,
That's
even
huge.
like, it's like, if you're not figuring out and asking for input from your team members, even on stuff which sound as simple as a mission, vision, and value statement, you're going to leave people behind. Like,
Mhm.
the train's already starting. You got to get people on the train. Like, and it, if you don't do that from the jump in terms of when you're hiring people, yeah, firing people is not fun. It's
Yeah.
not a fun conversation. Nobody wants to do it. But you really need to, if you don't think about these things when you're hiring. And like, a, a lot of guys in the home service space are looking for the cheapest labor they can get. And then they
Mhm.
get pissed when people don't show up to job sites on time, always
Or
have
they
to take
leave.
time off, or they leave, or they no call, no show. It's like, yeah, this is, and like, none of our home service guys are thinking about mission, vision, values. Not at all. They're only thinking about the jobs and the money from the jobs. But I would even argue it's more important when you're doing back-breaking labor.
Well, you have to give somebody a reason other than financial
Money.
compensation
Yeah,
to be
because
a part of your organization.
if they're an A player, they can get top-line compensation anywhere.
There's going to be
Anywhere,
someone else who just got a
especially in
round,
this market.
yeah, who just got a round of VC funding and
Yeah,
is like, hey, I can pay you
they're gonna get
20%
headhunted.
more with
They're gonna
full
get
benefits.
headhunted in some niches if you're not paying them correctly. And guess what? They're
Mhm.
gonna go. they're
Yeah.
they're gone.
Especially you got guys on 1099, things like that. And again, I think on a future episode, actually probably our next episode after this one that we'll probably do is actually dive into not only the hiring aspect, but then how do you actually get these people to buy in? So I think we'll probably top this one. What I want to do
Yeah.
is with these episodes, obviously we've told you guys that we'd like to give you kind of the overall look at kind of whatever topic we're particularly talking about today. We're talking about scaling yourself personally to in order to scale your business. And what I think we're going to do now is at the end of every episode, we're actually going to give you guys, like we've mentioned in our, intros previously in previous videos, actionable steps to actually implement this. How do I take advantage of this? You probably listen to this episode and like, man, like that sounds exactly like me, or I resonated with a particular part in this, or, how in the hell do I even go about doing this? And I think that's a valid question. And so, I'll kind of leave it up to, to you. If you have some actionable insights, like call it, 5 to 10. I've
Mhm.
got a couple in my mind too, but if you could put together some initial steps to a guy who's coming in here and he's listened to this episode, and he's like, dude, this sounds exactly like the position I'm in. I do want to make that change. I just have no idea, or I'm nervous to do so. Like, what would you tell him
Yeah.
or her?
The the first thing I would say to them, and it's kind of twofold, one on the personal side, one on the business side.
Mm,
You either have to take a step back and look at things from a logical 360 view, or have someone you trust there with you while you do that. If you can't, drop your ego and look at it logically,
that's a great
but
point.
look at what you are doing on a daily basis. Like, what are your day-to-day tasks? Okay, what are the things you like to do? What are the things you hate to do? Because the first things you're going to do when you're scaling are going to fill the things that you hate doing, right? But also on a business side, where are you weak? A lot of business owners either one don't want to admit to themselves that there are weak points in their chain, or are so egotistical that they think even though there are weak points, I can overcome them.
Yeah.
Those are the first two things you need to look at. The things you hate doing and what are your weak points. Because, and I mentioned this on one of our Instagram posts from last week, but if you are scaling and there are weak points, it's going to get exposed, and exposed in a
Oh,
way where you are going to lose tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, that's just what it is.
just
So if you're,
magnified at a greater scale.
yeah. And then on- once you've done that, take a take a temperature check with the people that you work with. Ask them what they like working, or ask them why they like working for you. What are things you as a business owner, as a boss, can improve on? But what are aspects in the chain of work that can be improved on? Because guess what? The people that do the things day in, day out have a better idea of what needs to be fixed than you.
Ooh. And they got
10
some
times
strong
out of 10.
opinions. An
Yes, they do.
anonymous survey is probably a great way, because a lot of
Yeah.
guys, they're probably like, hey, dude, like even though we're kind of off the cuff, or just straight shooters, like a great way to take advantage of that would be an anonymous survey. You can do it
Yeah.
free through Google Forms or anything like
Take
that.
the pressure off. Where it's like, whether it's a roundtable discussion where everybody knows you have opinions, your opinions matter, what your opinions are not going to change my outlook of you as a person. And
Yeah.
that goes back to, you have to remove the ego. And then for the guys that, you know, it's tough because a lot of guys who have that big, guys or girls that have that big ego won't even be like, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
But if you have that big ego, take some time and think about why. Why do you feel like you need to be in every aspect of the business? Why do you feel like no one else can do it better than you? I'm not saying there's things that, some of your team members can, or there are going to be some things that you do better than your team members. For sure. You've been doing it probably longer than them, more
Yeah.
experience, yada, yada, yada. But why? What is the actual reasons you feel like you have to be so entrenched in the business? Is it because that's what the business needs to succeed? Or is that what your ego needs to feel like you're this big honcho?
Yeah.
Those
That's a
are
great.
like the kind of key areas where you have to start. Because if you don't start with those three things,
Mhm.
you're going to figure it out later on, because it's going to be so obvious, whether it's the weak points, the things you hate doing, or why your ego is so large. Because as you scale, you just can't be, in and out of things on a daily basis like that.
Yeah.
But if someone came to us and asked, those are the three things that I would say, this is what you have to do, and actually sit down and think about it. Not when you're doing something else, not when you're watching TV at night. You have to sit down with a notebook and write these things out and take a legit look at yourself in the mirror, not through this shaded perspective of, oh, I'm the king, whatever I say goes. Take a legit look at yourself. And it's probably not going to feel fun in some aspects, but guess what? Growth isn't comfortable.
Yeah. I think that's
What do
absolutely
you think?
fantastic. Yeah. And I think you really hit the nail on the head. I really don't have, other than the only thing I guess I will add is, let's say you're a guy or girl who has currently a couple folks, whether they're 1099 contractors, guys that you just consistently go to work for or got work for, you guys consistently do business with each other, whatever the case might be. I want to speak to them just for a quick moment and say, take a look at what your operations look like right now. If your operations have you constantly checking on job sites, constantly texting and calling them, or that micromanaging, or if you can
Such a
already
big
tell,
thing,
because
dude.
that temp check, I like that you mentioned that because you can tell if people, for lack of a better term, give a shit or not. You'll know if somebody's just showing up for a check just to get the job done,
Mhm,
or if they're genuinely not concerned, but have a genuine I guess, for lack of a better term, again, concern for how the business does, how you guys are, sought after, or how people look at you
mhm,
from the marketplace. How do customers view you? And it'll be simple things like, how are they showing up to job sites? Are they on time? Are they, clean? Not, clean, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, are your guys just throwing trash on people's yards or on these commercial projects? Are they just trashing everything and not, things like that that I've personally seen that translates to your customers. And so
yeah,
you can really tell if these guys care or not at the end of the day. That's one of the biggest things I would say is, like Owen said, take a temp check for you guys who already have team members. Take a clear look and see, do they really care or do they not? And then have a clear understanding is, are these the right people that I need in my organization in order to grow and to scale? Or more so, I wouldn't even say the right people first. Ask yourself, are these the people that you want to deal with long term? That's
mhm,
always what I look at when I'm looking to hire. Is this somebody I want to deal with for the next 1, 2, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years potentially? And I'm not saying that that's going to happen. There's no guarantees. Of course, things happen, people grow up, whatever the case might be. And again, we'll touch on that in a later episode, but you have to actually ask yourself, do I even want to be around or communicate with this person on a long-term basis? I get the job's got to get done and all that good stuff there too. But then you sit back and you wonder why you're having these issues, why guys aren't showing up, why you hate talking to this individual, why, you know, they're not presenting how you would present. It's because
mhm.
of these things that you're doing business with somebody who doesn't care and you haven't given them a reason to care. So again, I would say take that temp check like Owen said, but then also again, figure out what it is that you want. I think that's one of the biggest things that you need to be able to do. Like Owen said, go back and sit down, ask yourself, what does my vision look like? Because, like Owen said, you're going to have to write this out and to be able to materialize it and convey that to people coming into your pipeline, into your organization. So, figure out what it is that you want. And I would actually take extra time to think to yourself, and you might not know the answer to this question, but think to yourself, what is it probably going to take to get to there? If I'm already doing 2 million bucks a year and I'm doing it this particular way and I have not seen significant growth or growth really at all, maybe even a decline, understanding that things are going to have to change and getting used to that and being comfortable with that, or at least being
Yeah.
open to that idea. I think that's one of the biggest things that you need to be able to do, along with Owen, like he said, dropping your ego at the door. You need to understand that there is going to be change. You have to be comfortable with it and you have to be open minded at the end of the day.
Mhm. A 1,000%. I mean, a lot of it comes back to, like, what's your goal?
100%.
Like, if you can't verbalize what your goal is, it's kind of a problem, you know?
Oh,
And it
how are your
and
employees going to share that same vision if you
and
can't even speak to it?
and it's and it's not some arbitrary number. Like,
No.
that's a that's a great thing for a revenue forecast. That's what revenue forecasts are.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
why
goal. It's just a
yeah,
goal.
but what's your ultimate goal in terms of some people want a beach house in Florida. Some people want to dominate a niche and have
Yeah.
a stranglehold on it. Some people just want to pull 150 grand a year. Whatever your goal is fine. There's no wrong answers, but you have to know what it is.
Yeah.
And that goes back to like a lot of this like internal, like almost analysis
Oh
of
yeah.
who you are, what you want, and what is it going to take to get you there. And if you don't know, how can you figure it out? You can figure it out for the business side of things by coming to a company like us,
Hmm.
someone who's done it before, done it for our clients, where it's like, okay, here are the steps. But we've had people who are like, hey, I would love this, but I'm going to try it myself. And they come, like someone we just signed.
Yeah.
It's like they come back 6 months later after spending a bunch of money and not doing anything.
Yeah. That's a big thing. And again, there's nothing, I think, to O's point too, there's nothing wrong with seeking out additional assistance. I think that goes back to the ego part too.
Hmm.
Obviously, like he mentioned several times on this pod, like understanding that you are not the best. You might be the best in the Midwest or the best in the South or at one particular aspect. There's no human possibility that you are the best at HR, at onboarding, at marketing, at sales, at pouring concrete, at digging, or, whatever the case might be. I could list a ton of things inside of the excavation, concrete, home services, you name it, right? There is absolutely no way, and I'd be willing to bet, honestly, probably more than I should. I bet my life on it that
Yeah,
there's no way that you are the absolute best at every single aspect inside of your business. It is just
just
not
can't be.
possible. And that is draining. Let's say in a fictitious world, you are the best. That is absolutely draining. And you will not build a family off of that. If that's
You
something that you
wouldn't
desire,
you
that's
wouldn't
something I've
want to be
noticed.
the best.
Right. You do not want to be, because then you're required, or you're going to want the best at every single aspect of the business. And again, if you're trying to, a lot of these guys, they like spending time with their families. They enjoy building a family. Things of this those aren't going to happen.
Mm-mm.
Those simply aren't going to happen if you're the best at everything and you do everything. Again, like O said, it might be cool on paper. It might sound cool, but your body is not appreciative of that. Your family's not appreciative of that at any means. Your kids aren't going to appreciate that. So
No.
yeah, I I'll leave it at that. I think
Yeah.
a lot of these guys, they have some great things to think about. Again, like Owen mentioned, if you guys need that additional assistance, or you just want somebody to help you materialize this, because again, you might have something in your head, but you don't know how to either A, put it to paper, or even furthermore, put it into a process, put it into a system, put it into your
Mhm.
organization to enhance your infrastructure. That's completely fine. That's why we are here to help, and we're here to help you kind of take that from the inside of your brain to actually inside of your organization. So again, as we mentioned previously, www.momentumshiftmarketing.com. Of course, we'll have our resources and all of our links and stuff like that inside of the podcast description for this episode. Anything else that you want to mention to these guys?
No. Talk to you next week.
Yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. But other than that, we will see you guys next week.